Well, you can hear that wind whistling outside. We've had quite a week here. There's been Chinooks, so lots of ice on the ground, and we've had blowing snow. We've had blizzards, and it's been pretty tough here. Animals need trees and they need feed, and you need a place to just get out of that. And those of us that live in Alberta, we're pretty used to that. That's pretty typical winter weather. But if you're not used to it, if you're new here, it can be a bit of a shock. And that brought to mind this story. I just learned about it a few years ago. It took place the winter of 1906-07, and that was a pretty hard winter here in Alberta and a number of places too. There was a lot of cattle died that winter. A few ranches went belly up. There was a lot of snow. It was a hard winter. My family had only been here in Alberta a little over a year, so it was a fairly new experience for them too. But this story, unfortunately, it ended kind of tragic. So I thought I'd share that with you. Well, my name is Lee Brainerd, and a cattleman am I. I raised up my son under Montana's skies. My ranges were crowded, Montana's grass was gone, and I knew it was time to move on. With tales of Alberta ringing in my ears, of those warm Chinook winds and grass for my steers, well, my cowboys gathered the stock from my range, and we pushed for Alberta's plains. We crossed at the Wild Horse and stopped at the Hat. Boy, they whooped up that cow town, but the Mounties told me that I'd better find shelter and feed for my herd. But I turned and ignored every word. I should have known better. I couldn't do worse. If I'd just listened, I wouldn't wear this curse. Well, we pushed the herd north without the big crew, just me and Hampson White, and my young son would get us through. We followed the red deer, and then up Berry Creek, we found heaven in grass stirrup deep. The weather was fine, so no worries had I. The warm winds are blowing, so I went for a ride to scout out my ranges and make a plan or two. Wish I knew then what I now do. Those hunt boys, they told me to throw in with them, 'cause winter was coming. There's lots of feed in their pen. I told them it was handled. There's lots of grass for my steers, and they don't need to have any fears. Well, the October snows came, but not Chinook wind, and I wondered if winter would ever reach its end. We moved the herd north to some willows in the hills and made a camp there against winter's chills. The cattle were bawling, their feed was under snow, the mercury hung about 40 below. The horses were pawing on top of the hills, and I was counting my first winter kills. That first Chinook blew one January day, and we started those cattle for hunts right away. My cattle were skinny, my horses were through, but it's the only thing left that I could do. The going was tough, but the weather was fine, and I was sure proud of that young boy of mine. We stopped to make camp when our horses had tired. We roasted some lean beef on a cold willow fire. Then Albert jumped up with horror on his face. For God's sake, just look what's coming this way. A gray wall of misery had covered the plains, and we knew we stared death in the face. Well, that blizzard blew in and destroyed all my dreams. The mercury fell nearly 70 degrees. We had to keep moving, but we wanted to sleep. We'd found hell in snow stirrup deep. The horses had scattered with their tails to the wind, and my cattle had vanished, just the ones that lived. Old Hampson had enough, and he collapsed in the snow. But he wasn't the last to go. My Albert was finished when his hero fell, and a few hours later, my boy was gone as well. I laid them together, no more could I do. I'd lost cattle and horses and crew. I made it to Hunt's Ranch on my hands and knees. My hands, face, and feet had all started to freeze. They got me thawed out, and to Montana I went home, left my dreams laying out there in the snow. Well, the hunts kept my crew covered deep in the snows, but by May, the darn magpies took poor Albert's nose. The Mounties laid Hampson in Stettler that spring, and they sent Albert back home to his kin. Well, I rode back in June wearing only one toe. To search for my livestock, well, I just had to know. From 600 cattle, there were only 15, and that was all that was left of my dream. I came back with plans to start all anew, with more herds of cattle, and a new wife came too. I kept finding my horses for 7 more years, and each one brought a new set of tears. I should have known better. I couldn't do worse. If I had just listened, I wouldn't wear this curse.